All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening whenever you may be listening, and welcome to Latitude Live. Thank you, that's where you applaud, and we're here to have fun. It's great to have you all here at the 43 North Incubator. My name is Nate Benson, the Director of Media and Public Relations at 43 North, and for those of you returning, I see a couple of familiar faces. Thanks for joining us. Who's here for the first time at 43 North? Welcome, welcome. You enjoying it so far? Okay, good. Anyone here who is an avid listener of the Latitude podcast? Thank you, Alex, my boss. That's always good when the boss is paying attention to what I do all day. That's job security, folks. Well, you know what? For those who are new to the podcast, feel free to download it on your favorite podcasting app. We have over 50 episodes so far, so this isn't our first rodeo, although this is our second edition of the live edition. We wanted to do something special for all of our 2017 winners. Engage the public, so you guys are here, and so is he, so it's great. Everybody wins. Everybody enjoy the networking before and get a chance to meet somebody new? Yes, good. That's always good. That's what we're here for, to help build the startup community in Western New York. So, okay, here's what's going down tonight. I'm going to bring out our guest, Andrew Martinko from Suncayr, but you guys have a role as well. I encourage you to tweet, Instagram, Facebook, do whatever you want. Use the hashtag #LatitudeLive. Feel free to tweet pictures, quotes, whatever you want to do. Have fun. It's okay to laugh. My jokes are bad, I'm warning you now, but please humor me. I really would appreciate that. And there's going to be an opportunity for Q&A at the end. So make sure you kind of jot down some notes if you have a particular question sometime in the middle of it. And at the end, I will run around with the mic and ask questions, Price is Right style. All right, so Andrew Martinko graduated from the Materials Science and Engineering at the University of Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. Andrew co-founded Suncayr in 2014, is currently focused on sales, partnerships, and user experience. Before starting Suncayr, Andrew worked at the Academic Research Labs in a startup company based out of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. He's also an expert in wicker chair making and was recently recognized by the International Brotherhood of Plum Tasters for excellence in plum recognition. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Martinko.
All right, we're
Hi.
good. Hello.
I did make those last two facts.
I don't know. I'll try my best.
So here we are. How you doing tonight, Andrew?
Good. How are you?
Good. Give us the quick pitch of who you are. I know I introduced you already, but give us the quick pitch of who Andrew is. Super in-depth.
Very deep.
Very
I think,
deep.
right?
Yeah.
We're getting real into it very early. So, I'm co-founder of Suncayr. That's kind of part of what I do. Actually, that's a lot of what I do, obviously. We spend a lot of time working on the company as a part of the program here at 43 North. Outside of that, I focus a lot on entertainment in the form of piano playing and reading. I like reading fiction novels as well as non-fiction audiobooks. That's what I do when I'm driving all around. That's what I am, I guess.
Fantastic. You're Canadian.
Yes. Can you tell?
Yeah, right.
A?
We've had many Canadian winners. Are you the nicest Canadian winner we've had at 43 North?
I'd probably say sorry the most. I am I fully admit. Sorry for saying
Perfect.
sorry too much, but yes.
Great. All right, so digging in here, why material science? What was it about science that got you interested? Was it a childhood love of yours? Was it you just had to pick something on the first day of college? How'd you get into science?
Yeah, it was definitely a childhood love of mine. I was really interested in science from the very beginning. I knew all the names of all the dinosaurs. I thought I was going to be a biologist for the longest time. I emulated Jane Goodall, the gorilla researcher, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. But then as I was growing up, I realized that might not be the best career field for me, so I tried to see what else I could look at, and material science seemed like a great fit with doing new novel processes to modify materials to give them interesting properties. But then the engineering side is kind of the application of that, which I felt gave me a bit more job security kind of in the long run, because going the whole master's PhD route is great and rewarding, but I wasn't sure that was exactly for me.
Now, are you old enough to be a Mr. Wizard kid, or I'm a Mr. Wizard kid. I was just at that.
Not a Mr. Wizard kid.
Okay,
No.
well, Nickelodeon back in the late '80s was where it was at.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Sorry
for not knowing.
There's great YouTube video collections of actually Mr. Wizard being just a total jerk to the children, which was always endearing, I'm sure. So you started a tech company right out of university. Why so soon? Why not go the academic route? What was it about diving in deep with entrepreneurship that got you interested right out of the gate?
It's funny because my program at University of Waterloo in Canada, it's called a cooperative education program. So you actually spend 2 years out of the 5-year program working. So that's the whole point, is you basically go to this program, and instead of just doing school and then maybe a couple internships in the summer, you go to school for 4 months, then you work for 4 months. And the reason I chose that program is because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I said, let's try and find out through working and figure out what I like doing there and what I don't like doing there. And I'd have a great resume when I graduated. And then we had this idea in the final year, and I said, I'm going forward with this. So that resume, I guess, is kind of unimportant at that point. But definitely, it was mostly an opportunity just of having that experience of working in so many different fields, and then figuring out that there's a lot of great support for entrepreneurship up in Canada, down here in Buffalo as well, and taking advantage of those as much as you can to really do what you can, the best chance you can with a really cool idea that you have.
So there was no interest whatsoever in just like going to work for a corporation, a material scientist, and kind of do the 9-to-5 grind and just go home and have a happy life, right?
My program, the total name is nanotechnology engineering. There's no jobs in that field. When I graduated a couple of years ago, it was a 5-year-old program when I joined it. So I think 50% of the people who graduated from the program went to a master's degree or PhD degree, and maybe some of them went to like law school or medical school or stuff like that. So I think maybe some 20% of them actually got jobs in the real field of that space, and a lot of them were working for startups. So I guess instead of that, I started a startup. 15% of my class started startups. So that's kind of the way that it goes, I guess.
How thrilled was your family when you decided to go into nanotechnology with no job prospects whatsoever upon graduation?
Yeah, I think my dad was really happy I was in engineering, because he was an engineer. He went to the University of Waterloo as well, so he was very, very excited about that. My mom's an accountant, so she was maybe more disappointed I wasn't more in the business. But now I'm in business, so I guess you won after all, Mom, right? So they were pretty okay with it, though, because they figured that something would happen out of engineering at least.
So upon my deep investigation of your background, and by that I mean looking at your LinkedIn profile.
I'm glad I have it updated, so that's fine.
While you were at university, you investigated the interaction of DNA and fluorescent dyes with heavy metals and nanomaterials.
Yes.
Explain, like I'm 5, what that means.
Okay. So everybody knows what an immune system is, right? Your immune system fights bacteria, disease, whatever. It does that by making antibodies. It produces these antibodies which bind to specific things, namely those bacteria, and it kills them, destroys them, neutralizes them, whatever. So DNA aptamer is basically that. DNA obviously is what makes us, all of us. It's kind of the background of, or the backbone of our biology.
It's that thing from Jurassic Park, yeah, we know.
Exactly, yeah. I'm not, we weren't making any crazy dinosaurs. That was if I went to the master's program.
I guess.
So we're not there yet. So the DNA, basically, you can make certain sequences that bind to certain things. So we were making sequences that bound to heavy metals, and then fluorescence aspect means light emitting. So if the DNA bound to this specific metal, say mercury, then it emits light, and you're able to detect, hey, yeah, there's mercury in this water, which is obviously very interesting because you don't want to drink water with mercury in it. So explain like I 5, I guess, is we're detecting heavy metal poisoning in water and other kind of things like that, using something a bit different than more traditional antibodies that your immune system uses.
Anybody else do that in college? I just did nothing, nowhere near complicated. So,
well, you're doing pretty good
Andrew.
now. So,
oh yeah, I'm just wonderful. All right, so tell me about the nexus of Suncayr. How did you mentioned you got started at university? So what was was it an aha moment in your dorm one night? Was it the aha moment after a bar at 3 a.m.? Like how did you get there?
Well, I do have to thank kind of the university system originally for getting the idea in the head, just putting the platform together to have an idea like that. So at our university, your final year of school, you have to do what's called a capstone design project, which means you're culminating your knowledge of your previous year. It's wrapping up your education and applying that knowledge. So when we were doing that, we were thinking of it at first from an academic project point of view, but then we decided, can we think of this from a more economic point of view? What can we actually do that can impact the world? And we didn't know what we wanted to do when we graduated, so we had some applications there as well of, can we just make a career of this potentially? Because the university had a pretty good entrepreneurship ecosystem. There was a lot of support there, similar to the universities down here that I've been talking with, so that's been really exciting. And just having that opportunity, knowing about that option, and then exploring it, it was almost a why not moment. So
you've got this idea, you've got the resources at university to run with it. It'd be foolish for you not to, right?
That's what we figured. I don't have any children. I don't have a mortgage. So I said, yeah, it's kind of the time is now, and there's much less risk now probably than if it was, 10 years from now kind of thing. Maybe a risk for different reasons at that point, but right now I have the opportunity at least. So
I know we didn't cover in the beginning, so
yeah.
Tell us what Suncayr, or what the problem rather Suncayr is trying to solve with
Yep.
their product.
So I talked about my fun activities, I guess but from the business side, what we're focusing on is sun protection education, improving how people know they're currently protected from the sun, improving how people understand their current protection, the behavior they have, and how we can improve that. So our first product is called Spot. It's a color-changing sticker that tells you when to reapply sunscreen so you know when you're protected and when you're exposed all day long. We've got samples back there, so you guys can pick them up on the way out.
Or if you're from Western New York, it's Spot.
Yes.
It's just
yes.
it's our bad accent.
This is a big difference for me. I didn't realize the A.
Yeah, oh, yeah, it's very bizarre.
Yeah.
But we're unique here in Western New York. So why did you guys focus on this problem? There's a multitude of experience you had, rather, in university where you could have focused on. What was it about, skin care and skin safety, really, that you narrowed in on?
Yep. So it was a problem that we all resonated with. I'm sure you can all, think of this scenario where you put on sunscreen in the morning, you go outside for 8 hours, you have a ton of fun, but you come home sunburned. That sucks. Let's not have that happen anymore, right? We should be able to do something about that. Sunscreen should be protecting our skin. What can we do to stop that from happening? And then when we had that kind of thought, we were thinking a bunch of different ideas, but this is one that we kept coming back to because it was so easy to understand of, why is that happening? But then also we have family histories of skin cancers in the co-founding team. So my family's had a history, my co-founders had a history of skin cancer in their family. And that's also something that's almost entirely preventable. Skin cancer is the most common form of cancer in the world by a significant margin. And it's actually one of the only cancers that's increasing in its occurrence rates as well. A lot of the other cancers are decreasing. And this is a cancer that's entirely caused by sun exposure. So if we're better able to protect ourselves, better able to understand how we are exposed outside throughout the day, then we're going to be able to stop that from happening, or at least reduce it. And this was, with our material science background, we felt like we could make the materials involved in a product like this that would allow us to solve this problem.
I would say that's a noble problem to try to solve. I think
we
can all relate to that. So tell us about Spot. How does Spot work? What is Spot?
Yep. So right now it's a sticker, basically. Adhesive bandage, transparent patch. You apply it onto your skin. It goes on first before the sunscreen. You'll apply sunscreen over top of it. When the sunscreen's protecting your skin, it's going to be clear to show that you're safe. When your sunscreen's worn off, it's going to turn purple to show you that you're exposed. So Spot shows you when you're not protected from the sun. It also shows you when you've used enough sunscreen, because if you don't put enough on, then it won't go clear. The purple color will stay so that you know you haven't applied enough to begin with. This color change occurs multiple times throughout the day, so you're actually able to be protected all day long with a single spot. And when you reapply sunscreen on top of that purple, it'll go back to clear again. So that's kind of the core basis of it. We've also got some novel, innovative skin mimicking technology in there, which actually interacts with the sunscreen just like your skin does, thus the name. And this means that no matter what activity you're doing outside, Spot's going to, since it's interacting with the sunscreen the way that your skin is, whatever your activity you're doing, it's going to be removing sunscreen from Spot in your skin at the same rate. So when your spot turns purple, you know that your skin is exposed as well because the sunscreens come off your skin as well.
Does SPOT stand for anything? I know you scientist folks always have acronyms that end up coming down. So does it stand for anything, or do you just guys come up with SPOT?
We like the name Spot because it was simple, fun, and easy. We have actually tried to come up with little
Just figure
acronyms
something out,
like after the fact kind of thing. Because I think there's a lot of stories about companies trying to have the whole, oh, here's the great story behind our name, and in reality, they were just drunk at a bar or something and came up with it there. So we were just brainstorming in a room because our company's name is Suncayr, which breaks the great rule of radio broadcasting, which you can't spell it when you hear it because it's Suncayr. We didn't realize that when we made the name 4 years ago. So that was
you had to be a trendy startup and
exactly,
purposely misspell your name.
exactly,
It's the
yeah.
trend
And
Silicon
going
Valley.
back in time, it's okay. That was a mistake. So we've got the product name Spot. It was a fun. It kind of works both ways. You're looking. Spot is a visual cue, but it's also a physical object spot. Right. So that kind of worked out in that sense.
So how does SPOT actually work? And I'm giving you the opportunity to just give away all your trade secrets now to Johnson & Johnson, who I know is listening.
Yep.
But can you kind of dive in a little bit on what technology is in there that makes it smart, that makes it react to the sun, to your skin, and the sunscreen?
Yep. So it's the molecule, or the dye is called a photochromic dye, which means photo light, chromic change, light changing, pretty straightforward, right? So it's a light changing dye. What happens is when UV light and visible light hit this dye, it turns purple. There's a structural change that occurs so that purple light is now being reflected back, and now you're seeing a purple color. When sunscreen is covering the spot and on your skin, UV light is not going through anymore, only visible light's going through. So this structural change reverses, and it's now reflecting no visible light. It's just reflecting, it looks clear. And then again, when the enough UV is kind of reaching because your sunscreen's worn off, then enough UV's reached it to cause that structural change to occur again, and it's reflecting purple now.
So is SPOT self-aware? Is it going to physically yell at you if you need to get your ass out of the sun, or what's going to happen here?
That would be something maybe in the future.
Okay, so
I definitely could see
future
some
product
fun.
development. Got
We
it.
put a little electronic chip in there to either politely tell you or maybe less politely tell you, but there could be some fun in that. So.
But digging in a little bit, nanotechnology is involved with the SPOT sticker. Really, the breakthroughs in the last 5 or so years with nanotechnology, you couldn't have had this product 10 years ago, right?
We haven't seen it 10 years ago, and I think that definitely some of our understanding that we've brought to the table through our backgrounds has allowed us to kind of add in that expertise that wasn't there before.
What is it about nanotechnology that does make products like this now more feasible and now cost-effective to produce? Even if it was around 10 years ago, you couldn't mass manufacture something like this where the stickers wouldn't cost $4, $5, $6 a piece.
Yeah, nanotechnology fundamentally means things work differently at the smaller scale. Materials.
Is that really the scientific definition of nanotechnology?
Materials have certain properties. This paper has a certain property at this macro scale, but when you break it down into the really tiny pieces of it, those molecules in the paper interact differently when they're very small and different medium, not in paper form. So it's just given us a better understanding of materials as a whole, not necessarily anything anything too revolutionary in that sense, but definitely just nanotechnology enabling a better understanding of materials and their properties and how you can manipulate those properties to get desired results. And that's really kind of what it comes down to.
So what's happening now with Suncayr? I know you guys have an office in Buffalo.
Yes.
And you have an office, it's very close by Australia.
Yes.
So talk about that dynamic, being a young startup and dealing with 15 or so thousand miles between offices.
So who draws straws to get to go to Australia, right? He's been bugging me for a while to go testing. So
I think it's a great opportunity to do some market
Alex
research.
is still here. Or no?
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll form a committee.
So we pretty early on realized that with our technology being a sun product, we really needed to test that technology all year round. And Australia seemed like a perfect place to do that because it's sunny all year round. And Australia's actually got the highest rates of skin cancer in the world. Australia and New Zealand by, again, a significant margin because the ozone layer problems and the demographics of the population, it's really a big issue. So the government puts in a lot of money on sun protection, education, research into sun protection. How do you improve sunscreens? How do you improve consumer behavior? So there's a lot of exciting fits there. Plus, again, it was sunny. And I think if our product works in Australia's harsh sun conditions, harsh wave ocean conditions, it's probably going to work anywhere else in the world. So I think that was one of the, that was something that we've heard a lot of feedback on from different advisors, investors, that they liked that we kind of took that plunge of just, obviously managing a remote team is difficult, but we made it work because it's what we needed to do. So we moved some team members over to Australia, got them working there on testing the product. We've done 3 clinical trials now in Australia on proving the efficacy of the product, but also on showing that people actually improve their behavior using the product. It's not just, you know, a one and done, okay, put it on and I don't listen to it. No, people actually do use more sunscreen with it, and it is actually providing them value, which has been really exciting for us.
But of course, you know, because of the way capitalism works, all the potential partners and companies that you would want to do business with are all based out of New York and New Jersey.
Pretty much, actually, yeah. New York City,
office.
New Jersey. I think there might be one in Maryland or something like that. But certainly very close here, and it's a very quick either drive or plane ride away.
Yeah, but there's been opportunity. I mean, so what was it about 43 North that was alluring for a company like you guys?
So we had our office up in Canada, we had our office in Australia, but those weren't really the big market opportunities. So there was both the exciting market opportunity of the United States being probably the biggest market opportunity, maybe not in total volume, but just in accessibility, being close to home, and also in adoptability as well, because it's a very established market. But there's also strong manufacturing roots here, which is something we were looking to get some improvements on as well. So we're working with a couple manufacturing firms, which has been really exciting for us. And the competition as a whole, I think, has been really great for us so far, from the mentorship side, from the connections they've been able to make for us. And it's all, we'd heard good things about it. We knew a team from Toronto who'd gone through it, I believe, 2 years previously, and they had nothing but good things to say. So that was certainly a bonus in your guys' favor for us to look at applying.
Since you brought it up, so you've been able, you're going to be in the coming weeks, right, doing a test run of the local manufacturer, yes, right?
Yep. It's going to be really exciting. Last week, they kind of finished one of the last pieces of the process that we had to complete before we can do a final testing run. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be on track to complete our full production test run with them to get more product out there for this summer.
So what does Suncayr need from the public in Buffalo and in the public around the world? What is Suncayr looking for in terms of partnerships or in terms of awareness? What do you need?
Right now, we're a pretty small company, and we want to get this product into as many people's hands as possible. And the best way to do that is spreading the awareness and building great partnerships with different companies, brands, whatever, who can do that. So that's really what we're looking for right now, is ways that we can leverage existing relationships people have with our target market, with the people who can really benefit from this, and really get it out there. So we're looking for user feedback, continuously getting people's response on how the product's working for them, telling us what's working, what's not working. We've gotten great feedback so far from Australia. Now that the summer is approaching here in Buffalo, we're looking forward to doing the same thing here.
So big picture in 5 years, what does Suncayr, or rather, what does success look like for Suncayr?
Still being around, that's the first step, right? Still having money in the bank, basically being able to operate. As a whole, it's kind of funny to think about it, because there's so many different ways that you can protect your skin from UV. It doesn't have to be sunscreen, right? You can do a bunch of different things to protect your skin from overexposure to UV. So this is our first product in that line. We want to look at other products that can really help improve the education, the behavior of people who are spending time outside and who are concerned about their overexposure to UV. So having a diverse portfolio of products, both from like physical consumer products, but also educational platform kind of products that can really help people better understand how they are exposed to the sun throughout the day, how they can use sunscreen more effectively to stay protected, and really being able to just help people and see a real impact in the benefit that we're being able to provide them.
You know, we're 50 plus episodes in this podcast, and I still have not developed my series of questions like Inside the Actor Studio, where I ask every guest the same one. But there is one question I do want to ask. You know, is this your calling? Is this if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
It's a great question that I was talking to in the networking session before, and I honestly have no idea. I think I might have been spoiled a bit by starting a company right after graduation, because I don't know exactly what that, because all of my internship work experience before was basically in the realm of I was working for professors doing academic research at their labs, or I was at a startup company, or I was doing this. So I don't really have that big kind of corporate experience. So I'd certainly give it a go. There's a lot of cool things that I want to explore, even outside of the material science field or the business field, that I think would be interesting with the way the world's changing. But I can't answer too much right now because I can't think about it too much right now because I have to focus on this. So.
Yes, please do focus on this.
Yeah.
All right, so how about for Andrew, huh? Just give them a little bit of round of applause. Now let's open it up to questions. Who's got a question regarding Suncayr, some spot? Brian, do you have a question? You raised your hand. All right, I'm going to wander over to you. Brian Straka, 43 North staff member. How you doing?
Good. My question for you is, what has been the most surprising thing about being here since you moved here?
Being here, okay. I thought you were going to say about sunscreen first, but okay, that's fine. Most surprising thing, I would say, is how easy it is to fit in. You guys are really accommodating, and I mean, saying that as a Canadian, we tend to think we're pretty nice, but I think you guys might even beat us up there. So I've had absolutely no problem getting the help that I need, and everyone's really been stellar so far. Not that I wasn't expecting it, but definitely it's always really appreciated when you can come join a community and be accepted so easily.
When you told your colleagues about Buffalo, what was the reaction?
It's certainly different than getting to go to Australia. It's certainly different, definitely different. But I think that overall the reaction was pretty positive because obviously we saw the value of the community here, and definitely looked forward to joining it and really getting kind of the best foot forward we can into the USA market as we look to do our launch here. So,
all right, who else? Who else has a question? Anybody? Tanner.
So. I don't know how proprietary this can get, but I'm curious about the technology itself. What is, if you can tell me, what is the ingredient in sunscreen that causes the chromatic shift, like the?
Yeah, so there's a couple. So it's not an ingredient that we're measuring in the sunscreen itself. It's more the ingredient's effects on the UV light. So there's ingredients in the sunscreen. So there's two types of sunscreen. There's the chemical sunscreens, which basically have these long chains, these long chemical chains. They're called polymers, which absorb UV light when they're hit by UV light. So the UV light cannot get through them. So thus, no UV light reaches our product, and thus that switching of the structure doesn't occur. It's going to stay in the clear state, that structural state. Once your sunscreen wears off, the UV is now getting through, a threshold is reached. It's basically an equilibrium. And once enough UV is getting through that equilibrium is shifted, now we're in the purple state primarily. The other type of sunscreen is called the physical sunscreens. These are reflective. They're smaller, but they're growing in kind of scope. These are titanium dioxide, zinc oxide. These are probably names that are familiar to people. These ones actually just reflect UV light. It's basically a little metal that you can think of it as reflecting light, basically. So it's a barrier, not absorbing. It's reflecting now.
What is it about sunscreen that we're so stubborn about that we can't just use it properly like the instructions say?
So yeah, kind of what I was pointing to before is when we've done focus groups on sunscreen users, it's unfortunate that people really have a difficult time just understanding how much sunscreen they even need to be using. So we've talked to people and they've said how they think that, oh, I need to put on this much sunscreen. I only need to reapply every 6 hours or so, and that's not the case, right? Especially if you're not using the required amount. When it says SPF 60 on the bottle, if you're not putting a thick enough layer of sunscreen on your skin, you're not actually getting SPF 60 protection. And it's just unfortunate because it's not very clear, and this is not the consumer's fault. This is just the marketing. This is just difficulty to understand this product, and companies not doing a good enough job of explaining how their product works and how it should be working. And that's what we're hoping to do as well, kind of on the education side.
You had a question?
Yeah. Happy DNA Day, by the way.
Yeah.
I was wondering what your future plans are. Do you plan on sticking with UV or working with nanotechnology and spreading it out? For example, you talked about detecting metals.
Yeah.
So will you be able to detect copper for people with copper overload?
That's a really good question. The nice thing about having a on the skin patch technology is there's a couple different components in there, so we can keep exploring the UV detection space. There's other areas where that might be of importance, such as in food sanitization or the manufacturing process. Some people might have issues of contamination of UV light that can affect things. There's also our skin mimicking technology. There could be applications there, and other instances of, say, cosmetics, or even just in the patch we have, having more technology integrated in there. So I think it's really going to come down to kind of the market feedback of where we go next. Is this is our kind of first product, again, the core piece there, but there's a lot of different ways we can branch out, and that'll depend on the feedback that we get of which ways that we go from there.
This might be a complete oddball question, but Rust Belt community, there's a very old home. There's a lot of old homes. 1800s, turn of the century, a lot of lead paint in these homes. Could your technology be deployed in some manner to detect, infants, rolling around in lead paint dust without even realizing it, something like that?
I think I'm not sure that's something exactly this technology could get to, but I think that's something that we definitely could accomplish for sure. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of value in accomplishing that as well, obviously. So just a different form factor, basically, but some form of sensing, right? Yeah. Sensing is, it's really about prevention, right? This is the functional medicine component of why are we taking drugs to treat diseases when we could prevent those diseases to begin with? And that's really what this is all about. Sunscreen use, helping people better understand how can we prevent these things from happening so we don't have to worry about them when they do happen. It's not even on the table of discussion.
Anyone else?
Is there a differentiation between how much light like adult could be attributed to compared to like a child, and is your patch doing anything to distinguish between those?
You said a dog first, sorry, or?
So like adult versus like a child, like how much light they can actually be like exposed to before they actually are at risk?
Yep, that's I think kind of the product diversification part that we have coming. Right now we are kind of a one-size-fits-all solution, which is not ideal, but it's kind of where we have to start just from a resources point of view. So you put the sticker on, and it's measuring when a certain amount of UV light has hit it, right? When a certain dose of UV light, enough threshold has been reached, basically, then it's causing that color change. But we absolutely could, and we're working on that right now, our research scientists, on modifying both the skin mimicking technology to interact with different skin types a bit better, as well as the color changing dye to actually respond to different levels of UV threshold. So people with darker skin who have more melanin in their skin, they can handle more UV light threshold. Adults versus children. Children are more susceptible, certainly, to UV exposure, and actually getting a bad sunburn as a child. So there's different stats, but getting one bad sunburn as a child can double your risk for melanoma, or getting a couple bad sunburns as a child can double your risk for melanoma later. Melanoma being the deadly form of skin cancer. Thankfully, the least common, but still, once you start getting skin cancers often, melanomas can become more and more. You can get more and more likely to get them. So definitely children really need to be protected from UV exposure. Adults, your skin generally is developed a lot more by that point, so you're able to handle a bit more. But everybody should be protected. Unfortunately, tanning is not good for your skin, whether you're getting sunburned or tan. That's still UV damage, which is that's the unfortunate reality of it. So not that you can't get a tan, but just be careful about it, right? And make sure that you're staying properly protected.
All right. Anybody else? Anybody else? All right up front. Come on up. Walk by.
Peter had one too.
You know what, Peter? I'm over the whole Peter thing. I really am.
That's fine.
Peter's a staff member for you.
So great presentation. My husband and I are both dermatologists, so we're very interested in this, and I loved that idea. I was wondering, how long can you leave the sticker on for?
That's a good question. So we're going to probably limit it to a day. If you're a dermatologist, you probably know sunscreen mostly comes off via abrasion, toweling, stuff like that, right? So our skin mimicking technology is basically mimicking that, right? So eventually that is going to be all gone. But also the adhesive wears off after a certain amount of time. So generally a day is kind of the most you'll be getting out of it, and we'll recommend you kind of put it on again the next day. We've been testing in Australia, and certainly in the harsh waves, it can come off maybe in a couple hours, but we're working on that, and I think adhesive technology is pretty robust, and we'll be able to find one that is both, it's a hypoallergenic adhesive, so there's no risk for sensitive issues there, but still finding one that's both hypoallergenic and long-lasting is something that we're continuing to look to the best option for.
All right, Peter, I was just busting your chops. Of course, you can ask a question.
All right, so what's the biggest bump in the road that you've had in the process of this? A big challenge you guys had to overcome, or a case where you had to kind of change course?
The technology development has been quite the interesting challenge. When we first started this company, we didn't quite realize all of the components that would have to go into the technology development. But I like telling kind of a funny story about how we royally messed up our early stages just from a time wasting perspective. So we were initially doing a marker that would change color, like a Sharpie marker you draw on, and we were getting such great feedback from parents with young children, and we said, this is great, they love it, we're really gonna go with this. And then as we kept talking to them and we're developing the marker, as we kept talking to them for feedback, we started hearing questions from them like, well, how do I know if I've put enough on? How do I know that it's still there? Because the marker is clear, I can't see it when it's working. How do I know this is safe for my children? What's in this ink? What about, I can't tell my kid that they can draw their Crayola washable markers on their skin, but they can draw this marker on their skin. I don't like that mixed messaging. What if they just draw it on the wall, right? That's not gonna go very well for me.
You've never been to the Benson home, have you?
If you want to do that, by all means, I can make a marker for you, Nate.
Yeah, those kids paint on my wall all the time.
Yeah, I bet. So definitely that was kind of, and we weren't really we weren't maybe properly listening to those concerns at the beginning. And then even when we started listening to them, we started asking them, well, what about a sticker? A sticker would solve those problems. And they say, oh, no, we like the marker better. Really? But a sticker...
All your feedback says otherwise.
Right. A sticker solves those problems. Oh, no, but we like the marker idea. Make it work. Like, okay. So then eventually we finally wisened up and just said, we're making a sticker. And they said, we love it, right? We never got those questions again. So that was kind of a funny little, we spent about 8 months kind of developing the marker in the early stages.
Like how much time was burned before you realized you had to pivot, otherwise it's the end of the company before you got started?
This was very early on when we weren't paying ourselves a salary or anything, so we weren't really burning anything at that point, but it was definitely a big time waster and definitely could have, been more productive in the way that we used that time in the beginning and done some more, been here sooner basically, but that's kind of what you have to take, is you have to realize those assumptions that you're making and really understand from the get-go what you're missing out on by not following those assumptions properly.
If listeners want to get Spot to purchase and try, how can they do so?
Table back there for all the live audience, for the non-live audience. So our website is www.suncayr.ca. That's SUNCAYR.ca. But since we already talked about this, to make it easier, we have a product website called spotmyuv.com. SPOTMYUV.com. And that's where you can sign up for our sampling program. We gave out thousands of free samples in Australia this past summer, really focusing on getting that feedback, making sure that we are delivering value to users. And we're looking to do similar stuff here in Buffalo this summer, giving out product, really helping people understand how to use it and seeing where we need to improve our messaging so that they can understand how to use it better and get the full value from it that we hope it's able to provide them. So,
and if all goes well with the pilot in a few weeks, made in Buffalo.
Absolutely.
That's great. Everyone, Andrew Martinko, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so before I let all of you leave, I just want a few things to announce, a few housekeeping items. For those listening at home and for those in the audience here, the 43 North application is currently open. Head on over to 43north.org and apply today. Andrew, any advice for those listening for applying to the competition? It was probably a year ago now. You're looking at this daunting application and wondering, I can do this.
The thing that's most benefited us, especially as a consumer product, is the story, really honing in on the story that you're telling. For us, we have, and I'll admit, a bit of an easier shot there because we are able to talk about, the skin cancer component, the safety component, and that's a really compelling piece. But from the other side is that when I just say that, we have a sticker, then people can just say, oh, it's just a sticker company. They don't really realize the underlying technology that goes into it, and that's why other products in this space aren't working. So from that side, we have had to talk about, okay, here's our story, and here's the technology development that we've put into this that other people haven't, and that's why we're the solution for this. So focus on the story of what you're delivering, and really just start from that compelling piece, and that makes the whole thing flow smoothly after that, because then you're on the right foot. So.
And that is advice I would certainly adhere to if I'm considering the 4th North application. Number 2, be sure to subscribe to the Latitude podcast, and please head on over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. The more people who leave a review on iTunes, the better placement our podcast gets in the podcast directories across the internet. And we just want to share these stories across the world because great things are happening here. And D, share these podcasts, share other content from the Buffalo startup community. There's other organizations like Launch New York, Invest Buffalo Niagara, Back USA, Thimble, Sentient Science, Post Process, and other great startups producing content about this community, and they all need your help sharing their story so the rest of the world knows about all the great things happening here. I want to thank all of our sponsors, Citizen Bank, Prima Pizza, and of course Flying Bison. Thank you so much for listening. For 4th North, I'm Nate Benson, and we'll see you at the next one.